Do you want one of these? Well, if not, then this video's for you, because today, we're testing cheap versus expensive condoms. First, we're doing a fit test. We started with using 2 of the same size cucumbers. You can see the expensive condoms definitely have a much tighter fit, while the cheap has more air bubbles and definitely loosens up near the bottom. Now for the same test but on a banana. And you can see we end up with the same results. The cheap condom definitely has a much more loose fit. Now for a stretch test. Both condoms equally stretch out pretty far. And finally for a durability test. We poked both condoms about 25 times with a sharp knife to see if it made any holes. Then we filled them up with water to see if there would be any leaks. And neither condoms had any sign of leakage. So overall I would say that both condoms worked well, with the expensive having a slightly tighter fit.
And it's a tie! Cheap versus expensive flashlights.
First we're going to do a walkthrough of each of the flashlights. The cheap flashlight is charged via USB, while the expensive requires 4 heavy-duty batteries. You can also see just how much thicker the expensive flashlight is. Now to put the flashlights to the test. Each flashlight has a few different modes. Starting with the cheap flashlight, the first mode is its brightest mode. After the second click, the flashlight gets a little dimmer, and then the third click even dimmer. The fourth click will turn on strobe light mode, and its final mode is an SOS mode. Now for the expensive flashlight. This flashlight only has 3 modes. The first click being the dimmest setting. 1 click later will activate the strobe mode, and then double clicking will activate the brightest setting it has. I'm not sure if you guys can actually tell how bright this flashlight really is, so here's the cheap flashlight again so you can really tell the difference. We also did the same side-by-side comparison aiming at the trees, and you can clearly see how much brighter the expensive flashlight is. Another side note, the expensive flashlight does seem to get pretty hot in your hand.
And expensive wins!
Have you ever slept in a room with someone who sounds like they snore like a jackhammer? If so, then this video's for you, because today, we're testing cheap versus expensive earplugs. This test is to see which earplug can create the best seal in your ear to make sure no sound leaks through. And as you can see, the cheap earplugs didn't hold up as long as the expensive. The expensive earbuds did come with different sized plugs to fit for different ears.
And expensive wins! Cheap versus expensive portable speakers.
Our cheap option is a JBL portable speaker. It has a very minimal design and it is waterproof. It also has up to 10 hours of playtime. And our expensive option is a Sony SRS. This is also waterproof but has up to a 16-hour playtime. Now for a sound test on max volume. Now for the expensive speaker. The expensive speaker definitely has a fuller sound. Now to test the speaker's sound after being dunked in water. Now for the expensive speaker. So, as far as sound goes outside of water, I would have to say the JBL speaker might have a slightly louder max volume, but the expensive speaker just had a more full sound, almost like a surround sound. After being dropped in water, I would have to say they both actually performed really well, with the expensive just being able to hold its sound just a little bit better. But if you just want a portable speaker for the go, either could work.
And it's a tie!
Do you ever wonder how professional athletes pick their cleats? Well, lucky for you, today we're testing cheap versus expensive football cleats. We'll start with a quick walkthrough of each cleat. The cheap cleats look great and they have nice tall studs, which are extremely important for digging into the turf or grass. The expensive cleats also look great but have a slightly different style of studs. In theory, I think these studs are supposed to be a little better for explosive sprints, but I guess we'll find out in the next test. It also comes with slight ankle support. Now to test how well the studs can grip. The cheap cleats definitely took the edge for both tests. Now to test the weight of each cleat. The cheap cleats weighed in at 9.2 ounces, while the expensive cleats weighed in at 8.1 ounces. And finally for the sprints test. This test is to see which cleats can perform better with explosive launches and abrupt stops. Although both cleats performed well on the launch, it seems like the cheap cleats definitely did better on the stops. So overall, judging by the $10 difference between the cleats, I would say you're probably going to get a little more for your money with the cheap cleats. I would say maybe just get some external ankle support.
And cheap wins!